Have you ever wondered why your grandfather's garden always seemed to overflow with massive, juicy vegetables, while you struggle just to keep a few tomato plants alive, using expensive store-bought chemicals? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to dive into a gardening secret so incredibly powerful, the massive agricultural corporations hope you never find out about it. We are talking about the fact that just one single cup of fermented wood ash can lead to an absolutely explosive harvest. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to turn the useless grey dust from your fireplace into a potent liquid gold that will supercharge your soil. Let me ask you a provocative question right now. Do you think the big garden centres actually want your plants to thrive forever? Or do they just want you coming back every spring to buy more expensive blue powder? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because we are about to bust this industry wide open. To truly understand the power of this method, we have to take a quick trip back in time, long before giant chemical factories began pumping out synthetic nitrogen and artificial phosphorus. Indigenous cultures and traditional farmers around the world relied on a technique often called slash and burn agriculture. They instinctively knew that the charred remains of trees and brush contained the very essence of life for the next generation of plants. Wood ash was the original, undisputed king of fertilizers. It was cherished, collected, and carefully spread across fields to guarantee survival through harsh winters. But as the Industrial Revolution took over, convenience replaced wisdom. Corporations realized they could not put a patent on campfire ashes, so they spent millions of dollars on marketing campaigns to convince everyday people that gardening requires complicated laboratory chemicals. They slowly buried the ancient knowledge of ash, and more importantly, the advanced technique of fermenting that ash to unlock its true explosive potential. Today, we are taking that knowledge back. Let us start by exposing the biggest illusion sitting right in the middle of your local garden centre. Every spring, millions of us walk down those brightly lit aisles, staring at hundreds of colourful plastic bottles and shiny bags. They all promise miracle growth and massive harvests, but the truth is, most of these expensive synthetic fertilizers are designed to trap you in an endless cycle of buying. They deliver a massive, artificial spike of fast-acting nitrogen that makes your plants look incredibly green for a few short weeks. However, underneath the soil surface, a quiet tragedy is slowly unfolding. These harsh chemical salts literally scorch the microscopic life in your dirt. Over the span of just a few years, your rich, living garden soil turns into lifeless, dusty dirt that cannot hold water or support natural growth without artificial help. This forces you to buy even more of their expensive chemical powders just to keep your plants barely alive. It is a brilliant, highly profitable business model for the giant agricultural corporations. But it is an absolute disaster for your backyard garden and your wallet. We need to break free from this toxic dependency immediately. So, what exactly is this forbidden elixir we are talking about today? We are talking about fermented wood ash, but we need to be very clear about what that actually means. This is not just a simple matter of dumping some dusty leftovers from your weekend campfire onto your vegetable beds. Fermented ash is an active, living biological reactor that you create right in your own backyard. When you combine the specific minerals found in burnt wood with water and a natural food source for microbes, you initiate a profound chemical and biological transformation. The water acts as a universal solvent, slowly dissolving the hard, locked-up nutrients hidden inside the chunks of charcoal and ash dust. But the real magic happens when the naturally occurring bacteria jump into the mixture. These invisible biological workers begin to literally digest the harsh alkaline minerals. They break down the complex molecular structures into bite-sized, highly bioavailable liquid nutrients. Think of it like a pre-digested, nutrient-dense superfood smoothie made specifically for your garden. Now we must address a very common myth. You might be asking, why go through the trouble of fermenting it? Why not just sprinkle dry ash on the dirt and walk away? Let us bust that myth right now. Dry ash is incredibly volatile and highly unpredictable. If you sprinkle it on top of your soil, a strong gust of wind will blow half of your precious nutrients right into the neighbour's yard. If a heavy rain comes, it can wash the ash away entirely, or worse, clump it together into a hard, cement-like crust on top of your soil that actually blocks water from reaching the roots. Furthermore, the nutrients in raw, dry ash are locked up tight. They dissolve incredibly slowly, meaning your hungry plants might have to wait months to actually get any benefit. Fermenting the ash changes its entire chemical structure. It makes the vital nutrients immediately accessible to the plant roots the exact second you pour it on. Imagine trying to eat a rock-hard raw coffee bean to wake up versus drinking a warm, perfectly brewed cup of coffee. The fermentation process is the brewing process for your garden. Let us dive deep into the secret powerhouse hidden inside this fermented mixture, and that is potassium. When you look at a bag of commercial fertilizer, you always see 3 letters, N, P, and K. The K stands for potassium, and wood ash is absolutely loaded with it. Potassium is the ultimate regulator for your plants. It acts like the master control system for the water pressure inside the plant cells. When your tomato plants have abundant potassium, their cells swell up tightly with water, making the stems incredibly sturdy and thick. This is what allows the plant to produce those massive, heavy, juicy fruits without snapping in half under the weight. Potassium also acts as a shield against drought. It tells the microscopic pores on the plant leaves when to open and close, preventing the plant from drying out on a brutally hot summer afternoon. The fermented ash delivers this vital potassium in a pure liquid rocket fuel format. Your plants do not have to search for it. They simply drink it up and immediately begin building stronger cell walls. Beyond potassium, there is a second hidden superpower lurking in your bucket of fermented ash, and that is calcium. Any gardener who has ever tried to grow tomatoes knows the absolute heartbreak of blossom end rot. You watch a beautiful green tomato grow for weeks, only to flip it over and find a disgusting, black, rotting sinkhole on the bottom. That is not a disease or a bug. That is a severe calcium deficiency. Your plant simply ran out of building materials while trying to construct the fruit. Now, many people will tell you to crush up eggshells to fix this. But here is the brutal truth about eggshells. They take years to actually break down in the soil. Your current tomato plant will be dead long before it ever tastes an eggshell. Fermented ash, however, is packed with dissolved, liquid calcium. Because the fermentation process has already broken the calcium bonds apart, your plant roots suck it up instantly like water through a straw. A regular dose of this fermented mixture virtually guarantees you will never see a black, rotting tomato bottom ever again. We need to talk about the unsung heroes of this entire process. We are talking about the magical microbial life swimming around in your bucket. When you create fermented ash, you are not just mixing chemicals, you are actively breeding billions of beneficial bacteria. In the gardening world, we call this the soil food web. These microscopic workers act as a dedicated delivery service for your vegetable plants. In a sterile, chemical-fed garden, the plant has to do all the heavy lifting to find food. But when you pour fermented ash liquid onto your soil, you are deploying an army of microbes. These bacteria attach themselves to the tiny root hairs of your plants. They literally mine the soil for extra nutrients, digest them, and trade them to the plant in exchange for root sugars. It is a perfect, beautiful symbiotic relationship. You can compare pouring this mixture on your garden to drinking a high-quality probiotic yogurt for your stomach. A healthy human gut leads to a strong immune system. A healthy, microbe-rich soil leads to a vibrant, disease-resistant harvest. At this point, you really have to stop and ask yourself a logical question. If this method is so incredibly effective, and if it produces such massive, explosive harvests, why do the big agricultural companies absolutely hate it? Why do they hide this information? The answer is brilliantly simple and entirely driven by greed. It is because you can make this at home for absolutely free. The giant fertilizer corporations rely entirely on a subscription model for your backyard garden. They need your soil to be poor and addicted, so that you have no choice but to come back to their store every single month. If millions of gardeners suddenly realized they could use the free waste material sitting in their winter fireplace to grow record-breaking crops, corporate profits would absolutely plummet overnight. They spend billions of dollars on slick marketing, shiny packaging, and pay garden influencers to make you forget the ancient free wisdom of the earth. This is exactly why you will never, ever see a bottle of fermented ash sitting on a shelf at the big box hardware store. Before you rush out to start making this, we must talk about a critical safety rule. You cannot just use any random burned leftovers you find. Sourcing the perfect clean wood ash is the most important step of all. You want pure, natural hardwood ash. Trees like oak, maple, hickory, or applewood are absolutely fantastic and packed with dense nutrients. Softwoods like pine or spruce are okay to use, but they burn much faster and generally contain a lower concentration of minerals. But here is the absolute most important warning I can give you. You must never, under any circumstances, use ash from treated lumber, painted wood, glossy cardboard, or those fake chemical fire starter logs. You also cannot use leftover ash from commercial charcoal briquettes that are filled with chemical binders and lighter fluid. If you ferment those toxic ashes and pour them on your garden, you will literally poison your soil with heavy metals and chemical glues. Always ensure your ash comes from clean, natural, untouched wood that you would feel perfectly safe cooking your dinner over. Now that we have clean ash, let us talk about the specific equipment you need to set up your backyard fermentation station. The good news is that you probably already have everything you need. First, you need a large container. A standard 5-gallon plastic bucket is absolutely perfect for this job. You must avoid using metal buckets, like aluminum or galvanized steel, because the highly alkaline nature of the ash water can actually react chemically with the metal, ruining your mixture. Next, find yourself a sturdy wooden stick to use as a stirring rod. You will also need a piece of breathable cloth, like an old cotton t-shirt, a clean dish towel, or some cheesecloth, along with a piece of string or a large rubber band to secure it. This cloth cover is vital. It keeps mosquitoes, flies, and debris out of your bucket while still allowing the mixture to breathe and pull oxygen from the air. Finally, you need a clean water source. If possible, collect natural rainwater. It is the absolute best choice because it is soft and free of the harsh chlorine found in city tap water. Let us walk through the exact step-by-step recipe to get your first batch started. We are going to use a simple ratio system, so you can scale this up or down depending on the size of your bucket. The golden rule is 1 part of dry, sifted wood ash to 10 parts of water. So, take your plastic bucket and pour in 1 large scoop of your clean wood ash. I highly recommend running the ash through a simple kitchen strainer first, just to remove any huge, unburnt chunks of black charcoal or random nails that might have been in the wood. Once your ash is in the bucket, add your 10 scoops of clean, unchlorinated water. Take your wooden stick and stir the mixture aggressively for about 2 solid minutes. The water will immediately turn dark, murky and grey. You will probably see some tiny black flecks floating on the surface. That is completely normal. The most crucial thing here is respecting that 1:10 ratio. If you put too much ash in the bucket, the liquid becomes so intensely alkaline that the good bacteria cannot survive, and the fermentation process will completely fail. Here is the absolute genius step that separates a bucket of dirty water from a high-powered biological fertilizer. This is the secret step that most amateur gardeners completely miss. To make this mixture truly ferment and come alive, you must provide a food source for the microscopic bacteria. The microbes naturally present in the air, and the ash need energy to start multiplying and digesting the minerals. You need to add sugar. You can throw in a large handful of dark brown sugar, a hefty spoonful of thick, unsulfured molasses, or even a cup of water that you use to boil potatoes in. The carbohydrates and sugars act as an immediate catalyst. The moment the sugar hits the murky water, it wakes up the dormant microbes. They begin feeding on the sugar, rapidly multiplying into an army of billions. As they consume the sugar, They release organic acids that slowly neutralize the harsh alkalinity of the ash, turning your plastic bucket into a bubbling, buzzing factory of underground life. Once your mixture is fully prepped and covered with the breathable cloth, you enter the waiting period. Let us talk about the timeline of transformation and what exactly happens day by day. You want to place your bucket in a shady, warm spot in your yard, completely out of direct, baking sunlight. On day 1 and day 2, it will honestly just look like a bucket of sad, muddy water. But by day 3 or 4, the magic begins. You will start to see tiny, delicate clusters of bubbles forming around the edges of the bucket. This is the visible proof that the bacteria are actively breathing and working. By day 7, a very distinct odour will begin to rise from the bucket. It is absolutely crucial that you uncover the bucket and stir the mixture vigorously for at least 1 minute every single day. This daily stirring process introduces fresh oxygen into the liquid. That oxygen is vital because it allows the good, beneficial bacteria to thrive and completely outcompete any bad, stagnant bacteria that might try to take over the bucket. How do you know when this magical potion is finally ready to use on your garden? The entire fermentation process usually takes anywhere from 10 to 14 days, depending heavily on the outside temperature. You have to learn to read the visual and scent cues that the bucket gives you. First, look at the colour. The liquid will shift from a harsh, slate grey to a richer, darker, almost amber or deep brown tone. The heavy particles will settle to the bottom, leaving a slightly clearer liquid near the top. But the most important test is the smell. In the beginning, it will smell harsh, smoky, and like a wet campfire. But when the fermentation is complete, that harshness disappears. It will mellow out into a sweet, rich, earthy scent. It should smell exactly like the floor of a deep, healthy forest after a warm spring rain. If you open your bucket and it smells horribly rancid, like rotting meat or sulphur eggs, something went wrong, and you should dump it in the weeds. But if it smells fresh and alive, congratulations, you have struck liquid gold. Now we arrive at the most critical warning of the entire video, the vital rule of dilution. You absolutely cannot take this fermented liquid and pour it straight from the bucket directly onto the roots of your plants. In its pure, undiluted form, this liquid is incredibly potent and highly concentrated. It would be like a human trying to drink a gallon of pure, unadulterated espresso syrup. It will shock the plant, burn the tender roots, and likely kill it within 24 hours. You must dilute it. The universally accepted golden rule is to take exactly 1 single cup of your finished, stirred, fermented ash liquid and mix it into 1 large, standard watering can full of fresh, clean water. This usually works out to a ratio of about 1 part fertilizer to 10 parts fresh water. This heavy dilution ensures that your plants receive a gentle, steady, perfectly balanced meal of nutrients rather than a violent chemical shock. Always remember, in organic gardening, less is often more. You can always feed them again next week. With your perfectly diluted mixture ready to go, we have to talk about the best methods for application. The most effective, tried and true method is called a root drench. Simply take your watering can and slowly pour the diluted mixture directly onto the soil, specifically aiming for the drip line around the base of the plant. You want the liquid to soak deeply into the dirt where the main root systems are actively searching for food. You should generally avoid splashing this mixture directly onto the green leaves of the plant, especially in the middle of a hot, sunny afternoon, as the water droplets can act like tiny magnifying glasses and scorch the foliage. However, if you filter the liquid through a very fine mesh cloth to remove all particles and dilute it even further, you can put it in a spray bottle. Spraying a light mist onto the undersides of the leaves very early in the morning is called foliar feeding. The plant leaves can absorb the liquid calcium directly, giving them a massive, immediate boost of strength. Not all plants in your garden are created equal. We need to identify exactly which plants will absolutely explode with growth when introduced to this fermented mixture. The biggest fans of this liquid gold are the heavy feeders. We are talking about your tomatoes, your bell peppers, your eggplants, and your massive pumpkins. These plants require a tremendous amount of energy to produce large, heavy fruits. When you feed a tomato plant this mixture once every 2 weeks, the results are shocking. The plant will rapidly throw out dozens of new yellow blossoms. Pepper plants will develop thicker, crunchier walls and deeper colours. Cucumbers and summer squash will vine out aggressively, producing fruit so fast you will struggle to pick them all. These specific vegetables naturally crave the incredibly high levels of potassium and calcium found in the ash. Picture a jalapeno plant practically falling over onto the ground because its branches are so incredibly heavy, with vibrant, spicy, perfectly formed green peppers. On the flip side, we must discuss the absolute danger zones. This is where many eager gardeners make a fatal mistake. You have to understand that wood ash naturally raises the potential hydrogen, or the pH level, of your soil. In simple terms, it makes your dirt much more alkaline. Therefore, you must never, ever use this fermented mixture on plants that demand highly acidic soil to survive. Keep this bucket far, far away from your precious blueberry bushes, your azaleas, your rhododendrons, and your hydrangeas. Potatoes also prefer slightly acidic soil, so it is best to avoid pouring heavy amounts of ash liquid on potato trenches, as it can encourage a cosmetic skin disease called potato scab. If you ignore this warning and feed a heavy dose of fermented ash to a beautiful blueberry bush, the leaves will rapidly turn pale yellow, the veins will turn dark green, and the plant will slowly starve to death because the alkaline soil locks up the iron it desperately needs. You must know your plants before you feed them. Let me paint a clear, real-world illustration for you so you can truly visualize the power of this method. Imagine planting 2 identical, healthy tomato seedlings in your garden on the exact same day in May. For the first plant, you follow the instructions on a popular, store-bought synthetic fertilizer jug. The plant shoots up quickly. It looks incredibly tall and very green. But as summer winds begin to blow, you notice the main stem is slightly weak and wobbly. When the tomatoes finally ripen, they look okay, but they taste a bit watery and bland. Now, look at the second plant. Every 14 days, you feed this second plant just 1 cup of our highly diluted, beautifully fermented ash mixture. The difference is staggering. The second plant does not just grow tall, it grows wide. It develops a main trunk that looks like a small, sturdy oak tree. The leaves are thick and leathery, shrugging off insect attacks. And the fruit? The tomatoes are dense, incredibly heavy, deeply red, and bursting with intense, sweet, old-fashioned flavour. The harvest is easily twice as large. That is the power of nature over chemicals. It is time to permanently bust the oldest myth surrounding this topic. If you mention using ash to older, traditional gardeners, many of them will immediately wave their hands and warn you that ash will aggressively burn your plants to a crisp. And technically, they are not entirely wrong about the raw material. They are thinking of fresh, highly concentrated dry ash being dumped in heavy, suffocating clumps right against the delicate green stem of a baby plant. Yes, that aggressive action can and will cause severe chemical burns to the plant tissue. But that is exactly why our process is so revolutionary. Our 2-week fermentation period, combined with the extreme 10-to-1 water dilution process, completely and totally neutralizes that caustic danger. The harsh, burning elements of the raw ash are entirely mellowed out by the biological activity of the bacteria and the massive volume of water. When applied correctly, this liquid is as gentle and nourishing as a light spring rain. The ultimate beauty of utilizing fermented wood ash goes far beyond just getting a bigger tomato harvest this current season. We are talking about building a lasting legacy for your soil. When you constantly pour synthetic chemical fertilizers onto your garden, they inevitably leave behind toxic, salty residues. Over the years, these invisible salts accumulate, eventually killing off the earthworms and destroying the fluffy, vital structure of your soil. Using fermented ash does the exact, wonderful opposite. It leaves behind intricate carbon matrices and rich bioavailable minerals that actually help build and strengthen the soil sponge. You are constantly replenishing the earth rather than stripping it bare. By taking a waste product from your winter heating fires, brewing it with water, and returning it to the earth, you are closing the natural loop. You are not just aggressively feeding your current summer crops. You are actively investing in the deep, structural health of your garden, guaranteeing explosive harvests for decades to come. And there you have it, the ultimate explosive secret that the giant fertilizer corporations never wanted you to discover. By taking something as simple and completely free as leftover wood ash and using a basic natural fermentation process, you can create a liquid fertilizer that rivals anything you could ever buy in a shiny plastic bottle. You have learned how the incredible power of potassium and calcium are unlocked by billions of microscopic bacteria, turning grey dust into liquid gold. You now know the exact steps to brew it safely, how to dilute it properly, and which plants will reward you with massive, heavy yields. It is time to stop giving your money to chemical companies and start working alongside nature to build healthy, living soil. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If you found this secret technique valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with every gardener you know. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried using any form of ash in your garden before? And what were your results? Let us start a massive discussion in the comments section below, and I will see you in the next video.